Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And you know, even though Xbox and PlayStation has already held a showcase for this month, well, June continues to go strong with a slew of smaller showcases such as the Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary event and a Dragon's Dogma event today as well. So we are going to go over both of those later in the video, as there was a few interesting announcements here that might have more than just a couple fans excited. So we will go over that today, as well as the Nintendo Switch surpassing a major milestone. I don't really think it's any type of big secret by this point or anything like that, but the Switch is an absolute beast and it just continues to be so. Before we get started though, if you do like these type of videos and if you like to stay up to date with all the latest gaming news, especially during busy months like this, go ahead and hit that bell notification and subscribe button below. That way I keep you informed every Monday through Friday. Other than that, though, let's just go and dive right into the video, starting off with a return for a game that I don't think a lot of people were really expecting, but Lollipop Chainsaw was just announced to be making a comeback. This was revealed by Yoshimi Yasuda on Twitter, simply saying, "Lollipop Chainsaw is making a comeback by Dragami Games. Please look forward to it." Now, because he didn't go into great detail though, this does raise some questions on whether or not this will be a completely new game, or if it will be a remaster or remake instead. That all kind of remains to be seen, but the fact that a franchise like this is making a comeback at all, I'm sure is just absolutely thrilling for fans of the original. Again, I don't think that a lot of people were really expecting a new game, but well, here we are, and I take that as good news for all fans of the original. And that right there is the thing, because while Lollipop Chainsaw might not necessarily be a massive title by any stretch of the means, it did actually grow a bit of a cult following when it originally released back in 2012 for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. It's just this over-the-top zombie hack-and-slash style of game with a zombie hunting cheerleader. Yeah, it really just has this over-the-top crazy premise, but a lot of people, they really enjoyed that game, so it is cool to see it's going to get another chance on modern platforms depending on what devices eventually gets announced. Speaking of surprises though, Neon White is suddenly getting some more attention for, well, the right reasons this time. Of course, last week its embargoes leaked out online, and under the circumstances at the time, this did lead to a lot of speculation of a new Nintendo Direct on June 15th. Obviously, that didn't happen, but just as the original leak did signify, its embargo really was set for June 15th. And now reviews are starting to roll out describing what looks to be one of the better independent games to release in 2022. It currently has an 88 overall score on Metacritic with 14 reviews. Now that score can still move up and down quite a bit with more reviews, but from all the reviews that I've seen so far, critics are just glowing from its fast and unique gameplay. Each stage only takes about a minute or so to complete, as it's built with speedrunning in mind, but its unique mix of mechanics seems to really separate itself from some of the competition out there. It's like this strange first-person shooter with tight platforming and a card-based system for different abilities. Yeah, it sounds quite a bit different, and it truly does look unique, and that goes to its aggressive but attractive art style as well. Whatever the case may be though, and for as odd as that combination might sound, apparently it did turn out to be a pretty good game here, and if this game wasn't already on your radar, you might want to put Neon White on your wish list, or just flat out buy it, because again, it sounds like a pretty good game overall. As of right now though, it's currently only available on the PC and the Nintendo Switch. Now, let's go talk about those Final Fantasy VII and Dragon's Dogma showcases though. Now, both of these events were only about 10 minutes each, but still, there are actually some pretty massive announcements here. So first what I'll do is talk about Dragon's Dogma, because not as much was revealed here, but right at the end they gave a huge tease for Dragon's Dogma 2. Yes, it's now 100% official. No more leaks, no more rumors. Dragon's Dogma 2 is a very real thing. Unfortunately though, that's about all we know. They haven't exactly given us gameplay yet or anything like that. Really, so far, all we've gotten is this logo confirming that a game exists, but I still think that alone is very exciting, because I think that if you've played the first game, you kind of understand just how underrated that game actually was and just how much potential a sequel has. You know, this is a huge open world style of RPG, and the combat in specific is just so unique for this type of game. It almost kind of reminds me of some kind of combination between something like Skyrim and then Shadow of the Colossus. And it just works brilliantly so. But the thing is that Capcom, I mean, they've really just been killing it here in recent years, and I think that a sequel, I mean, if done right, I really think that this will be a huge improvement over the original title. I know one big question right now, though, is when will this game actually release? And while that's kind of hard to say, I actually do think that we already have a bit of a clue. And really that's coming directly from Capcom, because back in 2020, there was that Capcom data breach. So again, this is directly coming from Capcom themselves, and Dragon's Dogma 2 was listed in that data breach, so at the very least, we know that this game has been in development since 2020. More so, that leak did say that they were planning to release it in the 2022 fiscal year, Q2 to be more precise. Now keep in mind that things change, and obviously with everything that's happened in the last couple years, it's probably more than likely been pushed back. So if I were to guess, I would probably say that we're looking at around 2023. Now that's just speculation on my part, but either way, there you go. Dragon's Dogma 2 is again 100% official. Now, as for the Final Fantasy VII event, they did showcase several games here, including First Soldier for mobile devices, also Ever Crisis, which continues to look really good. That game will have a closed beta in 2022, though unfortunately, it's only coming to mobile devices so far. That's actually disappointing for how good this game looks. I imagine that this would be a great fit for platforms such as the Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PC, and PlayStation, but you know, this is Square Enix that we're talking about, so I guess it is what it is. It still looks like a great title nonetheless. However, this is where the big news really starts to come in. Final Fantasy VII Intergrade was indeed here, and with just all of the rumors swirling, there was a lot of anticipation built up for ports of this game. And, well, I do have some good news, but unfortunately, I have some bad news as well. The good news here is that Final Fantasy VII Intergrade is releasing on Steam tomorrow on June 17th. So that's amazing news. It's no longer an Epic Games Store exclusive. So if you were waiting to play Final Fantasy VII Remake, you can actually do that tomorrow on Steam, and it really is just an absolutely fantastic game if you haven't already played it. As you probably noticed though, I did not mention Xbox, because unfortunately, they did not announce an Xbox port. I was a little surprised by that, because we know for a fact that this was originally a one-year timed exclusive as confirmed by Sony themselves. It was on the box art and everything. This was a one-year timed exclusive. So my only guess by this point is that Sony, they broke out the checkbook and they locked this game down for a significant amount of time. Now, whether that's for multiple years or just flat out indefinitely, it's hard to say. But I think the dream of this coming to Xbox has kind of ended for the foreseeable future, as unfortunate as that may be. Now, with that said though, Final Fantasy Crisis Core Reunion was revealed here as well, and this will be heading to all platforms, including PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox, as well as PC. So at least this game will be multi-platform right out of the gate, and it actually looks really good. This is a remaster of the old PSP game, but it looks like a pretty significant upgrade. I was very impressed by this one, and with Zack, I mean, he's playing a pretty integral role for the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think this is going to be a must-play for fans of the remakes. And actually, about that right there was the big killer news here, as they officially unveiled Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, which is now titled Rebirth. They did show a little bit of its story, which seems to be teasing some very interesting stuff. It does look like you might be able to play as Sephiroth, which that's going to be really, really cool. Though I'm not going to go too into detail in terms of its story just for spoiler-related reasons. But Rebirth is now set to release in the winter of 2023, exclusively for the PlayStation 5, and they did confirm the remake project will be a 3-part series. So there it is. There will only be one more part after Rebirth, and then it'll be complete. Once again, though, it does look like Sony that they really want PlayStation to be viewed as that home of Final Fantasy. And that's become very evident with Remake, Rebirth, and Final Fantasy 16 as well. I know not everybody is necessarily going to like that, but I still hope that a lot of you all are satisfied with some of today's reveals. I know I am. I'm very excited to play Rebirth. I'm very excited to play the Crisis Core Reunion, as well as Dragon's Dogma. I mean, these are massive titles from beloved franchises, and yeah, I'm pretty stoked for all three of these games, and I hope some of you all are as well. Let's go and talk about the Nintendo Switch, though. Here's a console that has just been absolutely killing it all generation long. And it's crazy when you start to really kind of realize what Nintendo has pulled off. Last generation, the Wii U was just this abysmal failure to the point that a lot of people, they didn't even realize the Wii U was Nintendo's new console. A lot of people, they legitimately believed that was just this tablet peripheral type of device, and things just weren't looking good for Nintendo. But now here we are with the Switch, and they didn't just turn things around, but they completely flipped the script. They went from one of the worst selling consoles of all time to being their very best selling home console of all time. Of course, the Switch is a hybrid device, but that's the type of success that Nintendo has had this generation. And there's also a very real chance that it could become the best selling console ever, just flat out ever, beating out the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation 2. Now, that's still a long shot and everything, and the chip shortage, it might have an impact on that situation as well. But either way, that's the type of success Nintendo has had this generation. It's really insane what they've been able to achieve this generation, and once again, we're seeing that as Nintendo just surpassed a major milestone over in Japan as they just eclipsed 25 million units sold in Japan alone. This is according to Famitsu, and to just kind of put that into perspective, the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 combined has sold around 11 million units. So the Switch has more than doubled those consoles combined. Then as for the PlayStation 2, which is the worldwide leader in console units sold, has been outsold by the Switch in Japan as well. And that's the thing, because the Switch right now is the third best-selling console in Japan ever, behind the Game Boy, which has sold 32.4 million units, and then the DS, which sits at the top just ever so slightly at 32.9 million units sold. And really, I think that just kind of speaks to the dominance that Nintendo has had this generation. There's no other modern platform that's going to get anywhere near these type of numbers in Japan. They're not going to sell 25 million units worldwide. And again, the Switch is still going. Really, Japan, they just love handheld consoles, and you're really seeing that here with the Nintendo Switch. Let me know what you all think about all of this, though. Do you think the Switch will end up outselling the DS and the Game Boy a lifetime over in Japan? Do you think the Switch will become the best-selling console in that region? Let me know in the comments below. Let's go and take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all on whether or not you'd be tempted to purchase a Pro PlayStation 5 controller with back buttons, customizable analog sticks, and adjustable triggers, if they indeed announce one as it's currently rumored. And as you can see here, 23% of you would be tempted at the right price, and then 63% of you said no, you're fine with the standard controller as is. And overall, I think that that's actually a pretty good indication of the type of market for these premium type of controllers. 23% is actually pretty good when you consider your average customer is more than likely just going to stick with their standard controller. A lot of us are probably more of that hardcore demographic, and even then, these controllers, they still have more of a limited reach. They do have a tendency of being very pricey, as we've seen with SCUF controllers and even the Xbox Elite controller, though I will say at the same time, they're still really nice controllers. I actually bought an Xbox Elite controller myself years ago, and it was a great controller for the time, especially when it comes to competitive games. Those back buttons, they can just make all the difference with some of these competitive games out there. Unfortunately, though, my Elite controller, sadly as it may be, it did end up breaking eventually. There were some quality issues with that Xbox Elite controller, but hopefully Sony will do a good job with their version here, again, if all of this does end up being true. As you can kind of see, though, plenty of people out there, they do like these type of controllers, even if not necessarily the majority. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.